Welcome to S&M Radio, everybody. This is Shannon, and joining me is my buddy Mark.
Howdy.
This episode, we are not going to be reviewing a movie, but we're going to talk about our experience last weekend. We went to the one and only Flashback Weekend, which is a horror convention that is held once a year in Chicago. It was my second time going. It was Mark's first time going.
Yeah, definitely not last, though. I will be back.
So we had originally planned on going on Saturday, but then some stuff happened and life got in the way of that, so we weren't able to actually attend on Saturday. So we decided that we were going to go on Sunday instead. Actually, after we went, personally, I think that us making the decision to go on Sunday, in the long run, probably was the wiser decision. Typically on Saturdays at conventions like this, most of the stuff happens on Saturday. I think if we would have went on Saturday, I think it would have been probably a little more than we could have handled.
Yeah, it was a nice kind of calm experience. That's actually what kind of surprised me, how, you just kind of walk around, do your thing, and there wasn't too many crazy. I mean, it looked like a lot of people were leaving because I saw so many people walking out with suitcases, and, Sunday, like you said, was probably like the day when everything was pretty much wrapping up.
Sunday afternoon, there was one big Q&A, and then there was one screening. And then I think on Saturday, and then even on Friday, there was a couple of more Q&As. But I mean, on Saturday, I know there was a whole bunch of Q&As. I mean, they're one after another, pretty much the most of the day anyway, from like 11 to like 4 or 5. But on Sunday, there was the one that we watched for one Q&A or the one panel, whatever you want to call it, for Halloween 3. And then the Mad Monster Party movie that we didn't actually really watch. We were actually sitting in the bar for most of that movie.
Yeah, the Mad Monster Party thing was pretty cool. It was cool that we got to see Svengoolie, get a picture with him and an autograph and all that. But yeah, I thought it was cool too that I didn't. This is my first convention. The freedom of just kind of coming and going as you please was really awesome. They're screening a movie, and you can just kind of sneak in, watch it, sneak out, and go do something else. The atmosphere of the whole thing was just go along, do as you please, and have a good time, and you don't have to get like kind of pigeonholed in one thing. We saw most of the Halloween 3 panel. The screening, it was cool to see Mad Monster Party, sure, but I don't think we needed to sit and watch that whole movie.
The last time I went, which was 3 years ago, what they did was a little bit different. This time around, what they were doing is one giant room that all the vendors were set up in on one end of the room, and then on the other end of the room was where all the celebrity guests were set up at their autograph tables and stuff. Next to that room was another fairly large room with a stage, and then they had some screens set up with projectors, and then a bunch of chairs set up in there. This year, that's where they were doing all of the movie screenings as well as the panel discussions. The first time that I went a couple of years ago, there's a movie theater that's literally like a block away from the hotel that this convention is at. And at that time, all the movie screenings were over at the movie theater, not at the same time as the convention. Like the convention goes typically like on like Saturday and Sunday, starts at 11, goes to like 4 or 5, and then kind of wraps up and then moves over to the movie theater. And then this time, I think even on Saturday, when the panels were over, they started doing the movie screenings, whatever movie screenings they were showing on Saturday. I'm not sure which ones they were showing in that room. And then instead of actually moving the party, if you will, from the hotel to the movie theater, everything just kind of stayed there. We got there relatively early. I think we got there a little bit after 10. Stuff didn't actually start until 11. We got our ticket around 10:30, and then actually went and had a overpriced Bloody Mary. Came back at 11, went through the vendor area, started kind of walking around the celebrity guests as they were kind of slowly filtering in. I think for the most part, we did see all of the celebrities. We didn't talk to them all, of course, but I think there was only a handful of folks that were not there on Sunday that were there other days. I know one of them that wasn't there on Sunday was Jeffrey Combs, but other than that, I'm not sure if there wasn't anybody that wasn't there on Sunday that was there the rest of the weekend.
Oh, okay. I just remember, when we first pulled up in there into the Crown Plaza Hotel there, we walk in the back door, and there's people leaving. You see people clearly coming from the convention because they're wearing their horror T-shirts, and that that's what why they were there. I just remember the first thing, we walk in the back door of this hotel, and the first thing I see, like when we just kind of get in through the main lobby area, is Dick Warlock just standing there talking to fans. And it was just like, holy crap, there he is. He's just right there. And it's just, it's funny because, he's just this old man. I've watched interviews with him. I've seen pictures of him online and magazines, and, I've heard him talk about things in documentaries and the Halloween movies, the extras and all that on the discs. And it just was very, very surreal to wrap your head around the fact that, holy crap, there he is just standing right there. The guy who was in Halloween 2. The vending room was just like being like a kid in a candy store. So you got like nothing but horror merchandise as far as the eye can see. You've got DVDs, Blu-rays, VHS, T-shirts, toys, action figures, collectibles, movie props, everything you could think of. And, so you're stuck like, oh my gosh, what do I look at? Where do I start? And then once you get through all the vendors, and then you find out that, oh my goodness, all these people are there. All these actors and they're actresses, they're all already there. And I think I saw Tom Atkins, and I kind of like just had to step back. It was like there's something about that guy. He's got kind of a presence about him, because he's been in so many movies I've seen. And the Dick Warlock, when I saw him, he always, well, for the most part, has always had a mask on when he's on the screen. But, here's Tom Atkins, who's been in, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, Escape from New York, The Fog, Creepshow, Night of the Creeps, all these movies. And there he is just standing there. It was just so surreal.
The one thing I did want to mention about when we did walk in, when you saw Dick Warlock, you almost went fangirl on him. It was funny.
Yes, I did. I almost wanted to just go up to him and, hey, Dick, how's it going, man? Shake your hand. But I was very in control. But there was like a real surreal, because this is my first convention. I've never.
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand it.
I went in kind of knowing that, I wasn't going to spend a ton of money on autographs and pictures and all that stuff. I was going to kind of just focus in on like one or two people, and one of them was free, which was Sven Gulli, which was always awesome because I grew up watching Sven Gulli ever since I was a little kid, and he's still on today. And I did get his autograph and met him previously, but it's anytime I can meet Sven Gulli and get a picture with him, that's awesome. But I went into this specifically saying, okay, now out of all of these people, who is the one that's the most impactful that I'm going to actually toss some money down and go up to him and get his autograph, or her. And to me, it had to be the original Michael Myers from Halloween. So I did get to meet, shake hands, and take a picture and get the autograph of Mr. Nick Castle, who played the Shape in the original Halloween. And he was a pretty cool guy, just kind of laid back and, very, yeah, come on back and we'll take a picture and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so, looking back though, I wish I would have had some questions to ask him, like things that I would have liked to know. But when you're not prepared for it and you're not thinking like that, I couldn't even think of anything, or I didn't even think to ask him anything.
I met this time around. I did get an autograph from Sean Clark. We got to meet Sven Gulli. The one thing I do think that was the bonus of the lines for the celebrities weren't really that long. I don't think I even actually saw anybody really standing in line for anybody more than maybe one or two people deep. So I think that kind of gives you an opportunity, if you're not really looking to necessarily spend, a lot of money on autographs or anything, you can, like you had said earlier, you were kind of hanging out around Tom Atkins' booth, and he said something to you first, and you said something back, and you shook his hand, and, you kind of walked away and did your own thing. Whereas, like, the last time when I was there I think it was, like, on Saturday, like, I mean, there was, like, 10, 15 people deep for a lot of the lines. You know, if you're just kind of hanging out and trying to talk to them and they have people waiting to, like, give them money, they're going to kind of brush you off. And, you know, not that they're being jerks or anything to you. I mean, they're kind of making money off of it, so they're not going to want to sit there and waste 15 minutes talking to some butthead that's not going to give them any money.
Well, that's funny because, like, even with Tom Atkins, there wasn't anybody by him or anybody in line or anything. He was just kind of standing there by himself. And I think he had the biggest table, if I can remember correctly. It seemed like his table was the biggest, and he had the most pictures available to be signed because probably because he's been in the most movies out of all the people there. I remember the thing I said to him was, I kind of sort of slowly walked up to him, and, you know, and then he kind of said something to me like, so how you doing or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And that was kind of my entryway into talking to him. I'm like, hey, good, you know, and I said something like, I liked you in My Bloody Valentine 3D. And and then immediately points over to the table and tells me where the pictures are so I can grab one to have signed. And I didn't. I probably should have gotten his autograph, but I held back a little bit.
The one thing with the charging for the autographs, and I think maybe it finally, or it probably will maybe eventually come to a head, but one of the things that we kind of noticed, different people had different prices. The standard was kind of $20 for an autograph, and usually what that consists of is, you know, again, if you don't know what conventions are like, they usually have like headshots or like 8x11 stills from different movies or, you know, scenes or whatever that they're famous for. You know, you pay the $20 and you can usually pick one and they'll sign it for you. And they'll usually personalize it. And like you had said, you know, while you're standing there for a minute or so, they'll talk to you. Most likely they will pose for a picture. When you do buy an autograph, most of them won't just pose for a picture. But the one thing that I noticed this time around that I kind of noticed a little bit last time was that so-and-so would have $20 autographs, so-and-so would have $20 autographs. But then you would notice other people would have $30 autographs. Some people would have $40 autographs. There was one person there that had upwards of $50 for certain things. And then some of the people had different prices for different things. It was like $40 for an autograph. Plus, if you wanted to get a picture, it was another like $10 or $20. If you didn't bring your own item for them to sign, you had to buy an item for them to sign. So some of these people are getting a little ridiculous with the prices. I mean, honestly, it's a signature. I know that for a lot of people, like you had said, you know, it's an opportunity to meet some of these people and kind of chat with them for, even if it's just a second. But again, if you have on a busy day where you just have fan after fan after fan after fan, and you're thinking you're going to get $50 from each one of them, that's a little ridiculous. But the one thing that we did notice, though, we'd kind of talked about it while we were there, the people that were charging like $40, even some of the people that were charging $30, you didn't really see that many people going up to their booths and getting an autograph. To whereas a lot of the people that were charging $20, I mean, there was person after person after person. Again, it wasn't really that busy that day, so it wasn't like there was really a line for anybody. But, you know, Dick Warlock had people, Nick Castle had people all day. Scout Compton and Christina Klebb, those two were charging $20 a piece, and they had people in and out all day. The one thing that I did notice, and again, this isn't necessarily a knock against these people, but the two people that were there from American Horror Story, John Carroll Lynch and Naomi Grossman, and I think they both were charging $40 for an autograph. And I don't know if I saw either one of those guys sign more than maybe one or two things all day. But on the flip side of that, too, then you have these people that will bring in like movie posters or even like DVD covers or VHS tapes or something, and they'll get everybody that was in that movie to sign it. And so then you're like, you have that poster. You have like $500 invested in that poster. That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The two that I saw that seemed to be kind of have a sparse amount of autographs coming their way or people wanting to sign or fans. The one especially that I kind of felt, almost bad for, just because it seemed like every time I walked past her, like nobody was asking for an autograph, and that was Tamara Glenn from Halloween 5. She's probably, what's that? Gosh, that came out in the 90s or whatever. So, she was probably in her late 40s now. And, but in Halloween 5 isn't like a fan favorite, but man, every time I walked past her booth, like she was just kind of talking to her handler, and that was it. And nobody was there. And I kind of actually felt bad for her, especially because she was right next to Dick Warlock. And also the other one that was Jeffrey Kramer, and he was he was in Halloween 2. He was a real short scene as the coroner. And then he was also in the Jaws and Jaws 2 as the deputy. I saw towards the end, I saw some people taking a picture with him, which was kind of cool. But yeah, he kind of was just sort of sitting there twiddling his thumbs as well. The zombie girls seemed to be doing real well. They were getting a lot of attention for obvious reasons. They probably thought, the 3 hottest out of everybody in the whole room. Danielle Harris seemed pretty busy. Christina Klebb and Scout Taylor, they all had a nice group of people, even on Sunday being a little bit more scarce, that were still kind of hanging around them.
The one thing with the zombie girls that, and I know that we talk about this, me and you talk about this a lot, girls versus the Carpenter girls. Zombie versus Carpenter seems to be a theme of this show.
It does.
So you have Danny, who, if you're a fan of horror, of the, of sort of the B movies and kind of the under the radar horror movies, she does fairly well. She's in a lot of movies. Scout Taylor Compton and Christina Klebb, those two aren't necessarily as well known, I think, outside of the Halloween and Halloween. Well, Christina Klebb wasn't in Halloween 2, but outside of the zombie Halloween roles, they do pretty well at those conventions. And the other thing about them is, they are still fairly young. We were talking about this at the convention last weekend. Scout Taylor Compton is, sadly, I think she's only like 26. And then Christina Klebb is, I think she's in her early 30s, and then Danielle Harris is like 38, which is kind of funny that, you have a 26-year-old and a 38-year-old that played the same age in a movie a couple of years ago. But
yeah, I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah, those guys always seem to do very well with the fans, and they seem to be favorites. And like you said, too, it's probably more for obvious reasons for a lot of people. One of the setups in one of the corners was these guys had a bunch of props that were actual movie props. And they weren't for sale or anything. It was just like a display, like a little museum corner, if you will. And they had a couple of things from Halloween, from Child's Play. They had Friday the 13th.
They had a Jurassic Park prop, too. I found out later when I looked back through my pictures.
Oh, cool. And then they also had the clown costume that Danielle Harris wore in Halloween 4.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And I'm still a little disappointed that nobody went and asked her if she could still fit into it.
Oh, she totally fit into that thing, man. I'm surprised she wasn't wearing it. Yeah, those props were pretty cool. My favorite of all those props was the Chucky dolls. They had a bunch of screen-used Chucky dolls, and what was really cool was they had these dolls that were they were Chucky dolls, but they were like all plastic, like they didn't have the hair on them like the doll has. It was like plastic molded hair. And I think they might have just been the front part, because and they were in the boxes, because in those scenes in the movie where they're at the toy store or the factory or whatever, and that you see 50 to 100 of these dolls up on a shelf. Well, they didn't create like a Chucky doll for a full body Chucky doll with fake hair and all that stuff for all those scenes. They actually just made cheap little plastic get-ups just to shoot those scenes. And that was kind of cool to see.
If you are a horror fan, you should definitely go to a convention. If you've never been, you need to go at least one time if you're a fan.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If you're a fan of horror movies and you want to see some of these people that you've been watching for years and years and years, and It's definitely worth the price of admission. And just being in the, being in the vendor room and getting to see the stars and just kind of wander around, it's just like you feel like you're at home.
All right, so everybody, we will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Take care. Thanks for listening.
Take care.